Hi, my name is Nicole Scott from Mobile Geeks. Today I'm going to be putting the HTC One S up against the ASUS Padfone. Now I'm going to be doing this solely as handset to handset, and the reason why I'm doing that is because for the 4.3-inch form factor, both of these phones have a Snapdragon S4 processor, so they're not sacrificing on performance just because they don't have a massive display. I'm a big fan of this form factor because it easily fits into my hand. I don't have enormous man mittens, so I'm really happy that there's a phone that can easily be manipulated with just one hand. Now, of the two, which one is going to be the victor? Let's get right into it. So let's start off with design. The One S and the Padfone both have 4.3-inch displays with a surrounding form factor that is very similar. The One S is a little thinner at 7.8 millimeters, and the Padfone measures in at 9.2. If we kind of put them side to side there, you can see they are very similar, but the Padfone is a little bit thicker. So for this extra millimeter, the Padfone actually weighs in at 129 grams and the One S at 119.5. So it is a little bit thinner. Design-wise, there's actually something to be said about both devices. The One S features a slightly curved profile. You can see it here along the side where it kind of has this nice elegant swoop, and the kind of glossy display that seems to go around the edge right over there. So the HTC actually calls this the piano key finish. Both handsets are very light, very well crafted. The HTC does feel a little bit sturdier in your hand, but the One S, the Padfone, because it has this kind of texturized back, it feels very secure. And actually, I was riding through a typhoon on my way home, and I had the Padfone recently bought right out in the back pocket of my jeans, and at full speed in full rain, this came out of the back of my pocket. I thought for sure the Padfone was done, but super minor damage. Still looks absolutely great. So both handsets are very high build quality. I can't say that for all handsets that are coming out onto the market right now. Shape-wise, the Padfone actually resembles the iPhone a little bit, or the Samsung Galaxy S2. Both feature kind of this contoured tapered edging. It has this metal band around the outside that kind of gives it this, I guess, iPhone feel, but you can see it kind of tapers up here along the side, giving it definitely a slightly different look. The bezel on either side of this display is suitably thin. One of the things that I really kind of disliked about it was the fact that the display doesn't actually take up the whole display, because they've actually put the keys integrated into the display, but I'll get into that a little more later. So the back of the phone is actually, like I said, this kind of brushed aluminum, kind of like texturized, gritty background. I mean, I think the phone looks really, really great. My one complaint design-wise is that they've put Padfone here, fair enough, and then they've decided to put ASUS here as well. I mean, if they wanted to just overly brand the phone, they should probably have knocked down the price. My other thing design-wise is I think it was a very big fail to put the logo here over putting the buttons down here. If we take a quick look at the One S, you can see that it does have a much larger display. Just head home. Because the capacitive buttons are actually placed here in this portion where ASUS has just decided to put their branding. So design-wise, the One S definitely comes out a winner just because of this smart use of space. So next up is going to be storage. Now you see that the Padfone does have a removable back, which the One S does not. That is one of the biggest kind of downsides to this phone, is that it doesn't have the removable battery or any extra storage. So the One S has 16 gigabytes of internal storage, 1 gig of RAM. So the Padfone has 16 or 32 with 1 gig of RAM, and it has this micro SD card slot here. The one thing that HTC does provide you, because of the no availability of an SD card, is 25 gigabytes of Dropbox. So that's absolutely free. But I mean, you could just buy an SD card and top this off with 32. Now if we compare the display, each of these has a 4.3-inch Super AMOLED display, multi-touch, 960 by 540 pixel resolution with a pixel density of 256. But the Padfone, like I mentioned before, they've included their navigation buttons here on the bottom, which actually does, oh, I don't want to go to LinkedIn. Let's see where else I can go. There we go. Which actually does give the One S a much larger display because they've put the buttons down in the physical part of the handset. And if you're kind of looking at it, the Padfone kind of has this bluish tinge a little bit. When you compare the two whites, the One S just seems to be a little more bright, a little more vibrant. So if we also go back home, pull this down, the Padfone does have this extra kind of outdoor mode here that bumps up the brightness, but the One S just seems to be naturally a little bit brighter and doesn't really need this kind of extra bright mode because the screen is already naturally so bright. So for display, even in side by side, even though technically the specs are identical, the One S definitely pulls ahead for the display. So now what about the processor? Both of these are running Qualcomm Snapdragon S4, running at 1.5 gigahertz with an Adreno 225 GPU. So the operating system on these is actually quite a different story. Both of them are actually running Ice Cream Sandwich, so Android 4.0, but the Padfone actually offers a very vanilla experience. They haven't really altered it much. Things are very plain, which I absolutely love. The changes are, to me, extremely welcome. They have this brightness right here. They have this fantastic kind of scrolling here. We have access to all of the settings. We have ASUS customized settings here that do associate with the tablet part of the Padfone. Right now I'm basically just comparing these two as handsets. This does come with a tablet that slides in and has a keyboard dock, I'm sure as most people are familiar with. So it does have some power saving and some other things that you would expect from kind of any kind of handset who doesn't have a kind of original vanilla experience, but it has this great weather widget. Here is the email widget that actually works dynamically with the pad. So there's some really interesting things that kind of go on with this. Here on the One S we have HTC Sense. So it's the very familiar kind of iteration with, you know, everything here. I actually don't like the app drawer as much as what ASUS has done. I like having the widgets here, but you can add widgets to the home screen and customize it yourself. I prefer the notification bar here. Each of these I think offers an extremely compelling use scenario. I have no problem with Sense and I love vanilla Android, so I call this one a tie on the UI. Now what about battery life? Even though they've got the same processor, they don't actually have the same amount of talk time. The One S, even though it's slightly thinner, actually has a 1650 milliampere battery, whereas the Padfone has a 1520 milliampere battery. So this leads to a 9.7 hour talk time for the One S and about 8.5 for the Padfone. So if battery life is super important to you, the One S definitely comes out on top. If speed and connectivity are actually important to you, which it is for many, there actually is a difference in the network connectivity. The One S only comes with HSPA, which is 42 megabytes per second, but the Padfone actually comes with HSPA Plus, which gives it 51 megabits per second. So if you like speed when you're surfing, and who doesn't, Padfone's kind of a winner. The Padfone has an 8 megapixel primary camera with a 3264 by 2448 pixel resolution. It also has an autofocus, an LED flash, and it also has a digital zoom. See that going in right there. It also has a front-facing camera if you want to do some video chat. Now the HTC One S actually has a far more comprehensive solution, even though it also has an 8 megapixel camera with the same resolution as a Padfone. But it offers a back illuminated sensor, and the biggest difference I think is that the One S has a dedicated chip, especially for the camera, and it has sense to back it up. So if we were to take a video, and then we were just to hold this down, it's taking 20 pictures a second right now. And then when it kind of finds the best one, it'll put it over onto the side there. And it'll actually pick the best photo out of all the filming that we did, or when we were holding that down. So that's actually pretty interesting. So you're actually able to take stills while taking 1080p video. Of course it has, let's go back there. Of course it has all the trimmings with flash and ISO control. It also has an HDR mode. So let's line up, take that photo. There we go. So I mean, it's able to just offer you outstanding photos, whereas the Padfone, I've just never really been happy with the quality of the photos on this. If you kind of take a look at them, they're a little bit yellow. The detail's really not there in low light. So hands down, the One S just has a fantastic camera. So I'm sorry to say that even though I absolutely love my ASUS Padfone, the HTC One S just pulls ahead for me in a few very important ways. The camera is way, way better, and the display is a lot brighter. The battery life is also an important factor, which is slightly longer because of the slightly larger battery. So I hope this gives you a pretty good comparison of the HTC One S versus the ASUS Padfone. I still do love the Padfone. I think it has a very sexy form factor. I think it has a very good build quality. But if I have to choose the camera, the slightly extra battery life, and the better display, just take it. So HTC One S definitely wins. I'm Nicole Scott from Mobile Geeks. If you enjoyed the review, please remember to subscribe to our channel.